Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to Bible class. Today is lesson number 145. Boys and girls, get ready for our doctrinal drill. Question number 1. Who made God? Nobody. Question number 2. Was he ever born? No. Question number 3. Has God ever had a beginning? No. He has always been. Question number 4. Who is stronger, God or Satan? God. All right, boys and girls, let's review our memory verse, Matthew 11, verse 28. Today, we will be learning Matthew 11, verse 29. Matthew 11, verse 28 reads, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Verse 29 reads, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Once again, Matthew 11, verse 29 will be our verse for the week. It reads, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." One more time. Matthew 11, verse 29. "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." All right, boys and girls, we're going to review our 10 commandments. Commandment number 1, do not have other gods besides the one true God. Commandment number 2, do not make an idol to worship. Commandment number 3, do not misuse the name of the Lord your God. Commandment number 4, keep the Sabbath day holy. Commandment number 5, honor your father and mother. Commandment number 6, do not murder. Commandment number 7, keep your marriage promises. Commandment number 8, do not steal. Commandment number 9, do not lie. Commandment number 10, do not want things that belong to someone else. All right, boys and girls, get ready for our Bible story. Early that morning, Jesus was pushed and dragged into the midst of the jeering mob to Pilate's palace. Because it was Passover feast, the Jews would not go into Pilate's judgment hall. So the governor spoke to them as they stood in the courtyard. And there, standing before this hysterical, angry crowd of religious leaders, was the Son of God. They shook their fists and loudly shouted the worst of accusations as they cursed and swore at him. Pilate was surprised as he looked at the prisoner. He had expected to see a violent, rebellious criminal, but before him stood a calm, quiet, dignified man, showing his face tender love for those who hated him so. When Pilate could finally quiet the raging mob, he asked the chief priests, "What charges do you bring against this man? What has he done wrong?" "He's a criminal, a liar, and an impostor," they shouted. "He says he's God's son, and he claims to be the king." Then Pilate said, "Well, take him yourselves and try him by your religious laws." "But we want him crucified," they demanded, "and your approval is required." Pilate was amazed at Jesus' peaceful face and quiet calmness. He probably thought to himself, "He certainly acts like God's son, and he's behaving himself like a king, I'll ask him, Jesus, are you truly the king of the Jews? Jesus replied, I am. The furious crowd, led by the religious leaders, screamed accusations such as, you heard him make these preposterous claims. He is lying. He is no more than a king than we are. Crucify him. Pilate turned to the chief priests and the raging mob and declared, I find no fault in this man. The crowd was infuriated and cried out all the more, crucify him. The weak, cowardly Pilate had another idea. He told the crowd, you have a custom that I release someone from prison each year at Passover. I'll release Jesus. No, they yelled, away with this man and release the robber Barabbas. What then shall I do with Jesus? Asked Pilate. Crucify him. For the third time Pilate asked, why? What evil has he done? And their answers was, crucify him. Pilate was about to let the people have their way with Jesus, but he did not want to be blamed. So he took a basin of water and washed his hands as if he was washing away his guilt. And he said, I am innocent of this man's blood. The Jewish leaders were willing to take blame, so they shouted, his blood be on us and our children. What a terrible responsibility. So Pilate gave the awful command to take him out. He probably thought if the soldiers lashed Jesus with that cruel Roman whip, they would forget about killing him. The scourge used on Jesus was a rod with 9 leather straps attached to it. Woven into the straps were sharp pieces of glass, bone, and metal. How he suffered as lash after lash fell across his back. Soon his flesh was cut to ribbons and blood flowed down his whole body. Hundreds of years before, the prophet Isaiah had said, he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him. The cruel and hateful soldiers blindfolded Jesus, doubled their fist, and hit him, slapped him in his face, and spit on him, and Jesus allowed them to do it. Then they all began mocking him, saying things like, you claim to be the king. All right, we'll dress you up like a king. They draped a purple robe around his bloody shoulders, saying, a king is supposed to wear a royal robe. And yes, a crown, but you're not going to wear a gold crown studded with jewels. And with wicked and jeering laughs, they gathered some long, sharp, thick thorns and braided them into a crown. They pressed down the crown of thorns down on his sacred brow until blood ran down his face. They made him hold a reed as a scepter. Then they knelt before him in mockery. Hail, King, they yelled. You are not our king. After they had done their worst, they led their bleeding prisoners back to the judgment hall. When Pilate saw him, he brought him out where the people could see him. What a pitiful sight he was. Pilate said, look at the man. But the crowd had no pity for Jesus. They shouted, crucify him, crucify him. And again Pilate called out, I find no fault in him. Shaking their fingers in his face, the crowd screamed, Governor, if you don't let us crucify Jesus, we will report you to Caesar. We'll tell him you have another king to whom you are loyal, and you'll lose your job." And with that, Pilate was too much of a coward to set Jesus free. That did it. Pilate was trying to be on two sides at one time, which is very difficult. Pilate didn't want Jesus killed because he was convinced Jesus was innocent. And yet, Pilate was so selfish and ambitious that he didn't want to get in trouble with Caesar, the Roman emperor, who had given him his job. Pilate surely wanted to remain as governor because he loved his importance, the honor, and the high salary that he received. And he also wanted to please the people whom he ruled. Pilate, knowing that all hope was gone and that the people would never agree to his releasing Jesus, let them have their way. Pilate sentenced Jesus to death by crucifixion. Today, hundreds of years later, the question Pilate asked the mob of people comes to every boy, girl, man, and woman. What shall I do then with Jesus? Many of us have heard about Jesus all our lives. Are we still saying, "I know I ought to receive Jesus as my Savior, but what will my best friend say?" Or, "I'm going to wait till I'm older," or "until I have had good time and have done some of the things he might not want me to do." If you have never invited him into your hearts as Savior, don't wait any longer, but trust him now before it is too late.
All right, boys and girls, that's our time. Have a wonderful day.